I never attended art school, and I don't have a massive studio budget for an animation team, and yet I'm creating my own original animated series from scratch. And today, I'm going to show you how I do it so you can too. Whether you're a beginner animator or someone like me who's been around a while in the animation space and are looking to take your animation projects to that next level, I'm going to tell you how in just 5 short steps. Step 4 is very important, especially for beginners and animators who don't want to risk creative burnout, so let's get into it. It's actually easier than ever to become an artist nowadays. And when I say artist, I mean the real kind. The kind that picks up a pencil, pen, or stylus and actually draws things out on the page, which to some is a crazy concept, but I digress. With so many different tools and software at our disposal, anyone with enough skill, patience, and passion can honestly start their own animated series. However, for me, when I came up with all of my series ideas, it didn't start when I had my laptop or a fancy drawing tablet. I mean, it's okay, it's not really that fancy. It all started years ago with a simple pencil and a sketchbook, and that is where most ideas start, as just a simple concept. If you research any successful or even unsuccessful animated series, every single one never started off how it was presented as in the final product. Every story started off with just an early and very loose concept, and from that concept, it was refined and expanded upon over time. Let's use Avatar: The Last Airbender as an example. Not surprising to most of you, seeing as to how I always talk about Avatar because it's the greatest animated series of all time. You can argue with the wall about that. In the Art of the Avatar Animated Series book, the creators of the series talk about how the show was created from a very loose initial concept to becoming what we all know it as today. And those early Avatar concepts have some similarities with the final product, but also has some very huge differences. For me, when I first had the idea for my series Rift, I knew that I wanted to do a superhero series, and I knew that I wanted the heroes to be a young scientist. I knew that I was going to have him disappear in an accident, and I knew that he would eventually lead a group of other heroes. Now, that was the very early and loose concept I had back in 2018 while I was still in high school. Now, Rift wasn't the only series idea I had at the time. I also had an idea for another series called Reapers, and for a while I shifted my focus off of the superhero series for a while and focused more so on Reapers, simply because I knew for a fact I wanted Rift to be an animated series, and at the time I did not have the skills or the equipment to make Rift into the series that I wanted it to be. However, on the flip side, I knew my drawing skills were at an okay level at the time to try and attempt to create my own manga or comic series, and that is what Reapers was supposed to become. But the more I worked on it, the more I realized that while I love reading comics and manga, I always find myself more excited about animation than drawing my own comic. So that is why I shifted my focus back to learning and studying animation to essentially do exactly what I'm doing right now. But when I eventually revisited Rift, I learned a lot from writing and developing the story of Reapers that I realized that so much of what I had planned for Rift had to be completely overhauled. One of the first things I knew how to change was the main character's initial design. At the time I designed him, the movie Black Panther had just come out, and like every character designer for the last 6 years, I too gave my character the Killmonger cut. But after seeing it be overused so many times, I knew I had to change it. I also made some adjustments to his outfit as well, simplifying and refining the areas that need refinement, and now I'm left with a final look that I love, and from a lot of you guys' reaction, you seem to love it too, which is a win for everyone. Now for the really important part, I had to really delve deep into what the actual story of Rift would be, and like every creative, a lot of what I create is inspired by the things I love and my own life experiences. And after a lot of rewrites, I finally came up with a solid foundation for the story of Rift and the direction I wanted to go in from beginning to end if I'm lucky enough to tell the story in its entirety. Essentially, I went from having an idea about a young hero who disappears and has hero friends to knowing Rift follows the story of Adam Walker as Adam tries to navigate a broken world after a science experiment presentation gone horribly wrong, now known in history as the fracturing, which caused Adam to vanish for over 7 years until he is returned home only to find a city overrun with an outbreak of superhuman beings known as deviants, each vying for absolute control over the city of Nexus. Adam returns to a world he no longer recognizes and is yet also sadly familiar to the world he returned from. Now he must assimilate into a society that is now run by deviants, private militarized forces, and secretive corporations. But Adam has a secret of his own. Due to luck, or perhaps fate, when he was subjected to the effects of the failed experiment, like most deviants, he himself has gained his own unique abilities that gives him control of manipulating aspects of his dimension and all others. Adam chooses to use his gifts to help heal his world with the help of his family, friends, and new allies, under the superhero persona known as Rift. Now the question I ask you is, do you believe a fractured hero can put his world back together again? Now that is a brief synopsis of my series, and from that I've been able to write each of the characters I know I need in the narrative, what their roles are, and how the story will affect and change them, as well as how they as characters will affect and change the world they exist in. Once I had the story clear, I've been able to design each individual character who will make up the main cast of the story, as well as many of the other supporting characters that will make the world of Rift and make it feel so much more real and alive when people experience it while they are watching. And if you want to know more about my series, I made an entire video delving deep into the world and characters, which you can check out on the top left right after this one. So once you have your concept and you've refined it to the point that you're happy with, what I would suggest you do, and keep in mind you don't have to do this step if you don't want to, but I would say you should tell your story concept to someone you trust and whose opinion you value, and is also willing to be honest with you about your story. Now, when you ask for feedback, don't take it all to heart, and also don't apply all the feedback you receive if it truly goes against your vision for your story. The feedback is mainly to take a step back and see how others would perceive your story when it's presented to them. And from that reaction, it will let you know what you should and should not change, and hopefully make your series a story that people can't get enough of. Now, from your concept stage to creating characters, you would think you have all the things that you need to get started on actually animating your series. I need to tell you to just hold on for just a little bit, because before we get into animating a full series, there's a very crucial step that you need to take before you start gearing up for your pilot episode. In my personal opinion, the planning stage is the most important stage when it comes to any creative project. Without proper planning, any project is doomed to fail. You might get the project done, but that doesn't mean it was a success. One of the biggest examples of this in recent memory is the launch of Cyberpunk 2077. Now, I played Cyberpunk on launch, and let me tell you, the game that it is now is leagues above what it was at launch. And CG Projekt Red did one of the greatest comebacks in gaming history with how they turned a failure of a launch to a massive success, coupled with an expansion, a masterpiece of an anime, a video game sequel on the way, and an anime sequel. Now, I'm not trying to say to release a half-baked product and try to course correct later in hopes of doing what CD did with Cyberpunk, because that would be absolutely ludicrous. What I am trying to say to you though is just because something is a finished product doesn't mean it will be successful. So please trust me and take your time when it comes to planning out your series. The majority of planning any creative project happens in the pre-production stage, which in my opinion is the most important stage in the animation pipeline. And I have a whole video planned on why I believe that is and how to effectively master the pre-production stage. So subscribe if you're looking forward to that. In pre-production, this is where you determine how long your project will be. If you're working with a crew, this is where you'll determine the budget of the project, as well as you get to plainly see the timeline from start to finish, knowing what you should have done by what date in order to keep your project on track. So there's no rushing to complete tasks or neglecting to do a task because you forgot you had to. Having a clear and concise plan will always save you in the end, so that nothing can slip through the cracks, and you can ensure that you can make your project the best that it can be while still releasing on time. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this part because, to be completely honest, there are so many different tools out there that you can use to make an animated series with. If you guys want, I can do an entire video in the future going through multiple software choices, but for a quick rundown, there are a few free options for animation such as Krita, OpenToons, FlippleClip, and surprisingly Blender. I've gotten this question a lot about what I use to do my animation, and to clear this up, I use Clip Studio Paint, which is a software that a lot of anime studios are now using in Japan. So if you want to try and get a job in the anime industry, then I suggest learning Clip Studio Paint. Now, I'm not sponsored by them, although that would be pretty cool if I were. I do highly recommend it, not just for animation, but for comic and manga artists or illustrators in general. It is a very powerful software, and I use it for at least 80% of my creative work. Now, as for actual technical equipment, all you really need is a laptop and drawing tablet, and it honestly doesn't even have to be a drawing tablet with a screen if that's out of your current budget. I know a lot of artists and animators still make amazing work with just the drawing pad. All you really need to do is determine, number one, what you can afford right now, and number two, how reliable what you're purchasing is. Now, again, I'm not sponsored by them, but for my drawing tablet, I am currently using the Huion Canvas 20. I've had it since 2020 and it hasn't failed me yet, so I would say I'm pretty satisfied with the purchase. I just hook it up directly to my laptop and get to work. And if I'm being honest, I use my drawing tablet display infinitely more than I use my laptop, even when I'm just watching YouTube. It's pretty great. But now that you've got your concept and you understand the importance of planning out your projects, and now that you have your equipment, it's time to finally get to the part you've actually been waiting for: animation. But wait, while you can start animating now, I wouldn't recommend jumping straight into a pilot episode. What I would suggest, and you don't have to do this step if you don't want to, but I would suggest you at least try it, especially if you're new to animation. You know what, if you are new to animation, definitely do this step because it will save you from burning out before you ever come close to finishing your pilot. During this step, I would suggest creating an MVP, or a minimum viable product. Now, I'm going to show my business mind during this topic for just a brief moment, but don't worry, we're going to get back to the creative stuff in just a second. In business, a minimum viable product is simply the most basic version of a product that still solves a core problem for your audience. To put that in terms for animation, it's simply a very short piece of content that displays the overall narrative, setting, and theme of your series. Now, some people would see this part as being a pilot episode, and yes, while you can see it as that, I believe since most of you who are watching this video, you're an indie developer just like me, me, and most likely know as well as I do, that animation, especially a pilot episode, is a monumental task to accomplish, even with a huge following and dedicated fan base. And that's why I believe you should still make an animation showcasing your story, but instead of a full 22-minute pilot episode, I personally took the route of doing multiple 4 to 6 minute short films to not only showcase the narrative of my series and the characters in it, but also to learn and understand the animation production pipeline for myself, so that when the time comes and I do begin my animated pilot, I will have a deeper understanding of how the animation workflow should go, as well as my own strengths and weaknesses in production, so it can be easier for me to know who I need on my team to make the pilot the best that it can be for you all to enjoy. Now, if you've made it this far, then congratulations, because even reaching this is difficult in and of itself. If you followed all the steps up to this point, then what you have to do now should be pretty straightforward. It's essentially step forward, just on a much larger scale. This is when you take everything you've learned so far and refine it to the point that if you are blessed enough to take your series to full-on season production, you won't have to make too many changes or adjustments to the foundation of your story, because you've already put in the necessary work to make it clear exactly what story you're trying to tell your audience. Now, there are other factors that come into play when you create a pilot episode, and the main one that I've mentioned earlier is the financial side of producing an animated project of this scale. There are many ways to get financing for your series, from crowdfunding to merchandise sales and so on and so forth. It really depends on the route that you're willing to take and how committed you are to making your series a reality, as well as if you have built up a supportive community who want to see your series completed just as much as you do, as well as finding a skilled and dedicated team to help make finishing your pilot a much easier mountain to climb. You can even go at it alone, but to be completely honest, I wouldn't recommend that, because that is the highest likelihood that you could burn out. But if you believe you have the drive and passion and you truly see no other option, then by all means, go for it. My prayers go out to you. But that's going to do it for this video. I hope that it has inspired someone out there to go after their dreams of making their own animated series. Remember that it won't happen overnight, and it will take years of commitment, but if you believe in yourself and your story, I know that you can stick it out to the end, and I promise you, when that day comes, you'll be so happy that you took the chance on yourself. See you guys in the next one.